Bargain, bargain, bargain. Everyone loves a good bargain, even this guy. That's why they call him Bargain Bill. Yeah, they do. The only thing he likes more than a good bargain is a good retro handheld. But oh my gosh, look how expensive they are. Bargain Bill can't afford that. He can barely afford guacamole. But don't be sad, Bargain Bill, because there are retro handhelds that are good and also a good bargain. Like this one, the R36S portable game console open source Linux system 3.5-inch IPS screen retro portable handheld video game player 64 gigabyte games. And it can be yours for less than the price of 12 guacamoles. Well, you don't believe me? Well, shut the hell up. Find your own retro handheld then. Freaking God. Try to help you out, show you a good thing, a good price, call me a liar. What would I do to deserve that? A couple weeks ago, I made this video where I made the case that this thing, the SJ-GAM M17, was the king of budget retro handhelds. It's not great. It's got some shortcomings, not amazing performance, but with an updated system and loaded up with the games that it does play well, it's a ton of fun, especially for those PSP games that work well on it. I'm a big fan of this thing at the price that it's going for. But when I made that video, I got a ton of comments from you telling me that no, I'm wrong, and that the R36S is the best budget retro handheld. So I figured for once, instead of mass banning everyone who disagrees with me, I'd maybe listen to what you said and see if it's true. Or if you're just trying to get me to waste my money on yet another handheld that I don't need, but gosh darn, I do love having way too many handhelds. Yeah, that's this stuff. So that's what we're here to do. We're going to take a good hard look at the R36S. Okay, oh that's that then. And now that we've had a good hard look at it, let's actually see what it could do. If that's alright with you, of course. Is that alright? Yeah? You sure? Okay, let's do it then. On paper, the R36S has everything you'd want from a retro handheld. It's got the same tried and tested shape that we've come to love in these vertical handhelds. It's open source and comes preloaded with ArcOS, which is a great operating system that I love. It has a good screen, it's pretty cool looking, and it's freaking cheap, man. But let's not count our intestinal parasites before they're hatched. It's not perfect, but as always with these budget handhelds, we need to keep the price in mind. This thing goes for about 40 bucks on AliExpress, sometimes even less than that. I'll have a link to the best price that I could find in the description below. And at 40 bucks, it's easy to ignore a few of the shortcomings. And if I'm being perfectly honest with you, yeah, I was kinda dumb for waiting so long to check this thing out. Because for the price, it's really freaking good. It even has some specifications inside. It has an RK3326 processor with 1 GB of DDR3L RAM, whatever that is. I've seen some conflicting information on the battery capacity. Mine has a sticker on the back that says 3500 milliamp hours, so I guess we'll go with that. Why would a sticker lie after all? It has a 3.5-inch 640 by 480 OCA laminated IPS screen, which is basically the same quality screen as most of the devices like this. No Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, unfortunately, and no video out despite what some of the promo materials show. AliExpress is a house of lies, I tell ya.
Why must you turn my office into a house of lies?
On the front, we have a D-pad in the upper arrangement, face buttons over here, dual thumbsticks, start and select here, a function button that doesn't do anything, I call it the placebo button, and a single front-facing mono speaker. On the right, we have volume up and down, and a micro SD card hole for our system card. On the left, we have a power button, reset button, and a second SD card hole for adding storage. Around back, we have bumpers and triggers, and a trap door that covers a removable battery. And on the bottom, we get one USB-C hole for charging, and a headphone hole, and another USB-C hole for OTG connection. And some speaker holes down here for some reason, even though there's not speakers under the holes. This doesn't have what I'd call a premium feel. There are some awkward parts like the wrinkly screen anti-static shield that you can plainly see under the plastic, and the cheesy looking plastic molded buttons, but overall, it's got a really nice vibe to it. I actually really like the look of this smoky black transparent plastic. The hand feel is pretty darn good overall. The shape is good. It's very similar to the RGB20S and the RG353V. I can play on this thing for ages and enjoy it, and it's actually pretty pocketable. We get a little bit of a sharp edge on the hump with the bumpers and triggers, and it's probably a little on the large side, but it's not too bad in the pocket as long as you don't have too much other stuff in there. The controls on this thing are one of the weaker parts of it, unfortunately. Nothing terrible, especially considering the price, but don't expect greatness here. The D-pad is pretty stiff feeling and it has sharp edges that aren't super comfortable, and we don't get false diagonals. However, it's actually hard to do intentional diagonals, which means that sometimes it's hard to shoot on a diagonal or especially to do special moves in fighting games. It's fine. I can use it for most games and not fuss too much about it, but if you're picky about the quality of your D-pads, then you're not going to love this. The face buttons are a little bit stiff, and they also have sharp edges, and they have the letters etched into them, which don't feel great under your fingers. And the thumbsticks aren't great either. They have some cardinal snapping and don't feel amazing, but they get the job done. And the bumpers and triggers are super stiff and super loud. Just listen to this. So overall, yeah, not great controls, but honestly, considering the price, I think most of these issues could be safely ignored. The vast majority of games will play totally fine on this thing if you're willing to not be too picky. And if you are picky, then you'll just have to accept that your pickiness is gonna cost you more than $40, that's for sure. In terms of the system, this is hands down the best part of this device. Out of the box, it's running ArcOS, which is an amazing operating system. One of the best Linux operating systems out there. I love ArcOS for lots of reasons, but the main thing that I like about it is the front end. It's easy to browse through your systems and your games, organize your games, get into your games, change the emulator settings, change the system settings. You can change the theme, and it comes with a ton of themes pre-installed. And you get the pre-scraped game art for some of the systems. However, not everything is pre-scraped, and since we don't have Wi-Fi, that means that we can't do the box art scraping on the device. I've heard that if you connect a Wi-Fi dongle through this USB-C hole that it works, but only for like a minute or two. After that, it goes to sleep. So doing anything over Wi-Fi is a frustrating experience. And obviously you can set it all up yourself with a fresh ArcOS install to get a few extra features and also bring over your own scraped box art. But honestly, the system that comes on here is really dang good. So you're probably going to be fine with just leaving everything as it is. This is one of the few handhelds that I didn't immediately feel like I needed to start fresh and build my own system. It's really good out of the box, which is not a common thing. The games lists are really good too, for the most part. Not every system is going to have the best ROM sets. Some of them have dupes and Japanese games and weird naming conventions, but most of the important stuff is well done. My unit came with a 64GB microSD card, and they did a pretty good job of filling it with stuff. A good collection of Nintendo 64 and PS1 games, and a handful of Dreamcast, Nintendo DS, PSP, and since this is ArcOS, if you want to change anything or add ROMs for systems that aren't on here like Atari or WonderSwan or whatever, you totally can, right on the SD card from your computer. And in terms of gaming, for the performance, we're not going to get any surprises here. This thing uses the RK3326 processor, which means that you can play everything up to and including PS1 with no problem. And then Nintendo 64 will be mostly okay, but you'll have issues with the hardest stuff. And Dreamcast and PSP will be hit or miss. Maybe half the stuff on those systems will play well. But still, coming back to the price, for $40, you get a ton of really good gaming on this thing. All of the old stuff plays wonderfully, as you would expect. You get all the RetroArch options that you need to tweak the screen scaling and the shaders to smooth out the pixels if you're into that sort of thing. Because we're on a 640 by 480 screen, that means that we get pixel perfect integer scaling on some systems like Sega Genesis and TurboGrafx-16, and this is the native resolution of PS1 and Dreamcast. And even the systems that do need some scaling still look amazing on here. NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, everything looks great. The screen itself is a great screen. Man, it seems like every freaking device that comes out now has a great screen. We're so lucky that we don't have to deal with crappy low-res screens on the budget devices anymore. This screen is the same quality as the big boy handhelds that it's imitating. Handhelds that cost more than twice the price. Gaming on the R36S looks just as good as it does on those things. And the sound is alright. It's not amazing, definitely a little distorted at the loudest volume, a little tinny, but it's not bad. Like I said, you'll be able to run up to PS1 no problem. Every single game will run well. Most PS1 games can be upscaled using the enhanced resolution option, and they look super crisp on this 640 by 480 screen. And we get analog sticks for the games that use those. Nintendo 64 is hit or miss. Lots of the easier to run games will run well, but you're going to come across lots of games that are slow and stuttery. So don't buy this thing expecting to play all of your favorite Nintendo 64 games, but you'll probably still find a bunch that will work fine and are fun. Nintendo DS is pretty good. You can use the thumbstick as a touch stylus and it works well. I didn't find any games that didn't play well, but I didn't test a ton, so there might be some harder to run games that aren't great. It's good to have DS on here to experiment with though. Dreamcast is okay, but you're not going to be running the hardest stuff. But there are a ton of good Dreamcast games that are not demanding that will run great on here. So it might be worth taking the time to make a collection of the easier to run games and just sticking with those. And a similar situation with PSP. You're not going to have a good time if you're trying to play the hardest stuff like God of War or Grand Theft Auto, but a really good amount of games will run problem-free. And there are a ton of games like that on the PSP. So I say don't write this thing off. It's a great PSP machine as long as you're playing the right games. And I was actually impressed at the PSP performance considering the price. So now you're wondering, TechDweeb, is the R36S worth 40 bucks? Well, I'll tell you, 100% frickin' heck yeah, buddy. It is. As I was testing it, every time I got a stutter or found something I didn't like, I remembered the price and I instantly was able to ignore the thing. I hope that this is a glimpse into the future. I hope that this is the kind of experience that we can come to expect from devices in this price range. I was very happy with the M17 handheld, and I still love that thing for most retro emulation, especially GBA and the easy-to-run PSP games. I'd probably choose that over this to play those games, but honestly, the experience that you get on the R36S is vastly superior to any other handheld that I've tested at this price place. Everything from the screen, the system, the build, the games, it's great, and the few shortcomings are not really big issues. There are no red flags here. It's a great device at a great price. It is not going to make you as happy as an RG353V or a Powkitty RGB20S, but for 40 bucks, freaking come on, this thing rocks. So I'm going to give the R36S a score of 11 root beers out of 13, with a bonus golden dollar trophy because it's such a good deal.
Yay!
If you'd like to get yourself an R36S, I'll include some links to where you can buy this in the description below. And that brings us to the end. Thanks for watching and stuff. If you like this video, then check out this video, where I tell you about my current main handheld. Spoiler alert, it's the RG353V, which is like the full-priced version of this thing. And I explain why in that video. Go watch it. There's a link on the screen right now and down in the description below. And that's it from me. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.